In this chapter, we learn about things called functions, and we look at some things called linear functions later on. But right now, this lesson just introduces you to functions. The first thing we need to know about functions is something called a relation. A relation pairs inputs with outputs, like x values and y values, kind of like a graph. When a relation is given as ordered pairs, like on a graph, the x coordinates are the input and the y coordinates are the output. And then, as this lesson is titled, a relation that pairs each input with exactly one output, and exactly one is what makes it this special thing, that's called a function. So we just have to determine if something is a function in example 1. So again, we're looking for each input, or x value, having only one partnering y value. So if you look at your x values, we've got -2, that only shows up once, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So there are no repeating inputs. So I don't have to worry about an input being matched up with multiple outputs. So this is a function. And it says we have to explain, so let's write why it's a function. It's a function because there are no repeating inputs. Now we look at letter B, and letter B, you can see the input 4 shows up more than once. And when it shows up multiple times, first it has a partner of 0, and then it has a partner of 3. So because of this issue right here, 4 repeating itself with a different output, it makes it not a function. And let's say why it's not a function. It's not a function because 4 has multiple outputs. All right, let's look at it in a table format. So this one's pretty easy to find the inputs. Do any of the inputs repeat? Yes, right here. Okay, so do they repeat with different outputs? Yes, they do. So because 0 repeats itself with a different output, it makes it not a function. So our explanation, our answer is almost identical to letter B, but instead of 4 being the repeat, it's going to be 0. Now, letter D is what we call a mapping diagram. So this lists all the inputs here, and it lists all the outputs. And the way that you read this is -1 has an output of 4. 3 has an output of 15, and 11 has an output of also 15. So the question is this a function? Well, over in the output section, 15 has partnering inputs, right? So 15 repeated itself when I listed off the input and output partnerships in the very beginning of this example. But it's not the outputs that matter, it's the inputs. So when you look at the inputs, right here, these inputs, none of the inputs repeat themselves. It was the output. And since the input doesn't repeat, it is still a function. And I underlined the word input because even though the outputs repeat, it's the inputs that matter. So you can look at the x values and the y values when you have a graph, or I'm sorry, when you have a table, or when you have a list, or when you have this thing called a mapping diagram. But you can do this super cool thing when you have a graph called the vertical line test. And the vertical line test is exactly what it sounds like. You draw a bunch of vertical lines, and if at any point one of the vertical lines hits two parts of the graph, then it makes it not a function. So if you look, this dotted red line only hits one dot. Now, if I had made a dotted red line down this dot, it would only hit once. If I make a dotted red line down here, it would only hit this dot. So this would be a function. This is an example of not a function. So when you see we draw this dotted red line, you see it hits right there, and then it also hits right there. And so since it hits twice, it fails the vertical line test, which therefore makes it not a function. So that's how you can do it in a graph. Nice visual way. So let's try the vertical line test. Now, it doesn't have to be dashed lines, right? Like you can put whatever kind of lines you want. So let's kind of make some lines. We'll go down. Okay, see that only hit right there. This hits, wait a second, it hits 2 spots. Since it's hitting 2 spots on the vertical line, it's not a function. So I wrote that it's not a function because it fails the vertical line test. And I abbreviated VLT to be like super cool. Hopefully you think I'm super cool calling it the VLT. But that's what makes it not a function. Now, if you look at letter B, when I draw my vertical lines down this graph, there aren't any spots where a vertical line hits multiple points on the graph. And so since it doesn't ever hit it twice, then it is a function. So this one is a function because it passes the vertical line test. So this is something that we already talked about. The inputs represent the x values. But another word for inputs is domain. And another word for outputs or y values is range. So now when we go down to example 3, all it's asking is what are the x values and what are the y values. But what we do is we write them in what we call set notation. So we're going to list the domain and we're going to list the range. But what we're going to do is we're going to use these super cool fancy parentheses. And they look like this. Then we open our set notation brackets, and then we list all of the x values. So the x values of this graph are here at -3, -1, 1, and 3. When you're listing them, you also want to put them in numerical order. And then what you do is you do like a mirror image of that. You close the set notation brackets. And instead of using parentheses, we say these are a set that have something in common, which is that it represents all the x values. So now let's do the same thing with the range. Make an open set notation bracket. And then you list all the y values, which is the range. So the y value here is -2, 0, 2, and then 4. You see, those are all the y values, and you should put them in order when you write them. And then you close your brackets. Now, I wouldn't say my brackets are like the super best brackets, but that's what they look like, basically. Writing the domain and range for letter B is a little different. We actually don't use the set notation brackets because it's one long continuous graph, right? Like there's an infinite amount of values that would be here, right? Like here's -2, but then it could be -1.9, -1.8, -1.75, -1.66662, like, right? Like, so there's a whole bunch of values that we could use, and we would be silly to write it using set notation. So what we do is we use what we learned in an earlier chapter called a compound inequality. So the domain looks like this. You have to look for your highest and your lowest x value, because remember, domain represents x. So my lowest x value is -2, and my highest x value is 3, right? And then there's all the numbers in between. So x is between -2 and 3, and I'm using a greater, less than or equal to sign because I'm allowed to be equal to that value since it's a closed circle. Now we do the range. So the lowest range value is -1 right here, and the highest range value is here at 2. So my range has y values between -1 and 2. And that's how you would write it for one of these continuous looking graphs. And this is how you would write it if you're doing like just a bunch of random dots. Some more vocabulary for you are these things called independent and dependent variables. Now, you might have heard about these in science class. This is a little paragraph about the difference. The variable that represents the input values, which we know is the x values, which we also call the domain values, is the independent variable, because it can be any value in the domain. Think of the word independence, right? So this is an independent variable, meaning you can have any value for x. The variable that represents the output values is the dependent variable because it depends on the value of the independent. So when an equation represents a function, the dependent value is a function of the independent value. So we say y is a function of x because y depends on x. All right, last little bit down in example 4. The function y equals negative 3x plus 12 represents the amount y in fluid ounces of juice remaining in a bottle after you take x gulps. So before we look at the questions A and B, let's just talk about independent and dependent, right? So if you think about drinking a glass of juice, depending on how many gulps you take, that would change the amount of liquid in the cup. The amount of liquid in the cup doesn't make you take 7 gulps. You don't look at a cup and you go, this looks like 5 gulps, right? So the gulps is what determines how much liquid is still left in the cup. That's why X would be independent and Y is dependent. So, I actually just kind of answered letter A. We have to identify the independent and dependent variables. So, independent is the gulps, and dependent is the amount of juice. Now, in example B, they tell us what the domain is. So, you took either 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 gulps. What is the range? So, let's plug in those values into x because domain stands for x. So we're going to plug these values in for x, get some y values, and then we'll have the range. So pause the video right now, and in the x spot, I want you to plug in 0, write down what you get. I want you to plug in 1, write down what you get, and then plug in 2, 3, and 4, and write down what you get. So you should have 5 answers written down. So I wrote down the values as ordered pairs, but remember they just want the range. So the range, get your fancy bracket ready, your set notation. The range is 0, 3, 6, 9, 12. Remember, you want to write it in order, smallest to largest. And I've got one more thing to talk to you about. This is what set notation brackets or braces look like on a computer. And you can probably maybe find these on your keyboard next time you look down at the keys. What I want to do when we come to class is have a contest to see who can make the best set notation brackets. So I want you to use this example and come up with your best version, and then when you come to class, we're going to have a contest and see who has the best one. So practice these braces. If you have any questions, write them down and ask me when you come to class.